Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday, last one of August edition.
Let's go. Go away, August. Goodbye. August 75th now. Here we are today. It's been the longest August in human history. And now, finally, it is going to be in the rearview mirror. We can get into September, which is the month of training camps. Come back, NBA. Come back to us. I can't wait. Keith, we're going a little bit early today because I've got a little pilgrimage to make to go see a Green Day concert. You guys missed it, by the way. After our show stopped yesterday, Keith and I rattled off probably a dozen Green Day puns just through the flow of a conversation. It was pretty epic. I wish we had recorded it.
Yeah, we should leave the cameras rolling because we leave some gold on the cutting room floor after the shows occasionally. And then sometimes it's like, all right, dude, see you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on what we have going on.
Exactly. Sometimes our best moments of inspiration were like, oh, we just stopped recording that. But
right.
In any event, let's talk a little bit about the NBA, what's going on. Of course, we do have training camp starting up in a few weeks. August, thankfully, is going away. Keith, where do you want to start today? What do you want to get into?
It's funny. I was looking through some stuff and I think it's important to note a handful of key dates that are coming up for the NBA. Tomorrow, the 31st of August, last day to waive and stretch salary for this season. You can always waive and stretch salary in future years, but if somebody's going to get waived and stretched using this year's salary, tomorrow is the deadline. But I don't think we're going to see anything with that. Coming up, there's nobody kind of out there that seems like they're going to get waived. And then after that, our next dates really start to come up more towards the end of next month, but really within 3 weeks range. September 24th, Celtics and Nuggets report to training camp because they're allowed to report almost a week earlier because they're opening up the season in Abu Dhabi for the preseason. So those teams will be there in just about 3-ish weeks, 3.5 weeks or so, which is crazy that we're that close. Everybody else, September 30th is reporting day. That's usually media day too. You'll have the occasional straggler, but it's also important, I think, for people to know the real date players start to come in town is generally anytime after Labor Day. Labor Day is kind of just like it is for everybody else, it's kind of the unofficial end of the summer, right? It's like, all right, those last barbecues and for a lot of the country, last few days in the pool or whatever it is, it's wrapping up, and it's, schools have started and everybody's just kind of getting ready for the fall. Football season's coming and everything. And that's when players start to filter back into their home markets and start those kind of unofficial workouts. I like those because that's where like guys coming off season ending injuries and the like, we'll start getting, hey, this guy looks pretty good. He's moving pretty well. Or, sometimes on the downside, it's like, yeah, he still doesn't look really right. We'll get kind of those unofficial reports out of there. But yeah, I'm really excited for, all that to come. And then we've got the end of October, right before rosters finalize, is the extension deadline for any rookie scale guys or anybody whose contract goes beyond this one more year left. And then the rookie scale team option guys for 25-26, that's October 31st. So handful of dates to keep in mind there coming up over the next couple of months. It sounds always weird to me at the end of August, especially here in Florida where it's still 95 degrees every day.
I know.
We're like 2 months from Halloween. Like that seems crazy because I was a kid who multiple Halloweens in just south of Boston. You couldn't tell what I was dressed up as because I had the big heavy winter coat over my costume because it was so cold, and some years we already had snow and the like. But yeah, it's always just kind of funny how it hits a little different.
We're definitely just hoping it cools off enough now for Halloween to not be miserable. You mentioned that it's like it's the unofficial end of the summer and everything, but you're right. Where you're at, I mean, it's kind of the same. It just kind of keeps rolling, but for a lot of places, it does start to actually cool down, and it means the return of the NBA. So, an exciting time. I'll tell you what. By this point of the year, like I'm always excited for summer, to get into the warmer weather and all that. This is the time of the year where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of ready. I'm ready. Give me the crisp winter air and let's go. Let's get into some of that stuff again. I want to
100%.
bundle up in a big sweatshirt and sweatpants and sit by a fire and all that kind of stuff. So that's where
Long
I'm at
sleeve
now. Part of the
t-shirt
reason why I want
weather.
August gone. What's that?
That's me. Long sleeve t-shirts. If I
Oh,
if
there
I
we
could
go.
wear long sleeve t-shirts, the pullover or a sweatshirt and shorts, I'm golden. Like then I'm good.
Wait,
That's
you do a
right where I'm
sweatshirt
at.
and shorts?
Oh yeah, all the
Why
time.
not the sweat? Why not sweat pants?
So my legs don't really ever get cold. Like I'm okay
Huh.
like in shorts. So yeah, I try to live life now never putting on pants unless I really have to. Like I don't want to wear pants anymore. Like you gotta let the legs breathe, baby. Get a little color on there, get looking good, and then you go there. But yeah, man, if I can wear basketball shorts in some kind of like long sleeve on top, let's go. I'm in heaven every day.
Okay, I got you there. I understand what you're saying with that. I am definitely a sweatpants guy. Sweatpants, like pajama pants, the really comfortable ones. Like those, that's one of my
Sure.
favorite parts about the weather getting colder. But I will say this, like not so much when it's cold. I'll put some warm socks on and everything. But in general, I'm happy when I can live my life in sandals. My
Yeah.
sandals to me are your shorts instead of pants situation. Like if I can wear sandals and not have to wear shoes, I'm happy.
Yeah, I rarely like I'll put sneakers on if I'm going to do something, but other than that, I'm in slides. And yes, I am a very much a dad, a middle-aged dad. I'll rock socks and slides. I don't care. My daughter
Oh,
hates it. She's miserable by it. My wife doesn't like it. My go-to winter wear used to be if it was a little too cold for shorts, I used to wear tearaway basketball pants. Like way
oh, okay.
beyond when I should have been wearing them. But yeah, that's that was my other thing, and my wife hated it. Yeah, pretty much. Momo
The
is
guy
on it. These white
says,
guys, yeah.
says these white guys.
Yep.
Yes, we're two middle-aged white guys. We
Yep.
shop at Costco. Like
Yep.
there's no there we're just gonna lean into it. There's nothing we could do about it. It's
Yeah.
just it is what it is. These are
Yep.
the cards we were dealt. We play
Yep.
them and we make the best out of it.
Dude, I had a 30-minute conversation with one of my best friends the other day about lawnmowers. So that's where life's at now.
and enjoyed the hell out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Yep.
All
All right,
right.
guys, get some questions coming in the chat so we can you get into
We will talk
some
basketball.
stuff here. We'll want to take some of your questions. We know it's a little lighter. We had a nice news day yesterday. We had the Curry
Mhm.
signing. We caught up on Lonnie Walker. We talked to a handful of other things. But yeah, let's go. I don't have New Balances. I have Hokas. I do have a pair of Hokas. They're
Oh, okay.
comfortable. Dude, that's my walking shoes. That's what I wear when I go out for walks. Other than that, I'm a Nike guy. I've always been a Nike guy. I still wear Nikes.
Okay, so for me, it's Puma. I've
Okay.
been a Puma guy, and that goes all the way back to my soccer playing days. Puma cleats just always fit my foot the best. The Nike ones were always a little bit too narrow, so I always went with Puma. And now I still like I've got my shoes that I wear are Puma. In fact, I have multiple pairs of Puma shoes. I've got Puma sweatpants. All that Puma is just like my thing.
My
Um,
growing up sneaker was the Adidas Samba Classics.
oh, of course, yeah,
The indoor
everybody had that.
shoe.
The
Yeah,
the
like
the
those.
Samba, and then the Copas. Remember,
Yep.
everybody had the
Yep.
Copas. Yep.
Yep. Now, if I tried to wear those for like 5 minutes, they don't have the arch support and I'd be done. Like I'd
Right.
be out. I'd be out of this. So, all right, we got some questions coming
We
in.
got
Let's
some
talk
questions coming
basketball
in here.
before we lose the
Yeah.
entire audience.
Will Klay be a starter by the end of the season, or will one of Grimes or Najee Marshall take the starting small forward spot? I would have to imagine it's Klay. It maybe not even just based, I think based on his play, but also as a respect thing and all of that, and based on what he's done over the course of his career, that usually is going to carry weight in a locker room as well. The fact that he's been a starter for his career. So I would have to imagine it's going to be Klay.
Yeah, I think getting Quentin Grimes in the Hardaway salary dump was really interesting. Clearly, the Pistons didn't want to give him his next contract, so they were comfortable putting him in that deal. But I think that was an interesting pickup for the Mavericks. But that's more of a Josh Green kind of younger potential 3-and-D guy replacement. I think Najee Marshall is the guy who could take minutes away from Klay as the season goes along. And we have another question in here, which was from JJ Lynch. Bigger question is, will he close games? I think there's a chance Najee Marshall could be part of the closing lineup for the Mavericks just because of his defense, and he can make some shots. So I think it's I do think Klay will probably start. I think you're right. He probably starts most of the year, and then you bring in Marshall at times. But I kind of think in the regular season, that's probably a pretty close to 50-50 minutes split.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that Najee Marshall can cut into that, but I think Klay will start. Bruce Barnes asked, he basically lost his starting position in Golden State. If he doesn't have the respect there, why would he in Dallas? What does he go to Dallas if that hadn't happened?
Correct.
Like, you're not going to go back into the same situation all over again. For example, like, and I hate to bring everything back to Lakers, but you could be damn sure that JJ Redick is going to play Max Christie. He's going to play him a significant role. He's going to stick with the consistent lineup that worked from last season. He's going to carry that over. Why? Because those are issues that Darvin Ham had, that he didn't do those things. And the front office, I know, wasn't thrilled with him. It's part of the reason, not all of it, part of the reason why Darvin Ham's not the coach anymore. So you make a change, they're going to directly address those issues. The Mavs aren't going to want to have Klay walk into a new situation and say, hey, all the problems you had in your last stop, we're just going to repeat that all over again. Now, if push comes to shove and it's January, it's February, and they're struggling, and that's clearly a problem, maybe they'll address it. But right out of the gate, they're not going to say, hey, surprise, Klay, we're going to, and this is part of why it was such a big deal for Kirk Cousins when he went to the Atlanta Falcons, because he thought Minnesota was going to draft another quarterback and he didn't want to be in that situation. He goes to Atlanta and then they drafted Michael Penix. Like and that was part of the reason why people were clowning the Falcons so much, because you typically aren't going to put the person right back in the same problems that they had in the prior stop when they're a player of this kind of stature.
Yeah, I think also my guess is there was probably some discussion of, will I start with the Mavs? Because it's not like Klay had a shortage of teams. He had, at least, we know the Lakers and at least a few other teams were interested in bringing him in. So if there was a conversation there where it was like, yeah, we see you as a 15-minute a night bench guy, he might not be in Dallas. And part of that may have been, we'll start. But I don't think they're by any means locked in. Like, if he's not playing well or just doesn't have it anymore, they have other options to go to. That was part of my guess, was that was a big chunk of the Najee Marshall signing. Najee Marshall is an outstanding replacement for Derrick Jones Jr. For them. He's not anywhere near as athletic, but I think he's a better shooter than Jones Jr. is. And I think he's just a guy who gives them a little bit more of a, Jones is an athletic defender. Marshall's a little bit more of a rugged defender. And I think you could put him on some of those bigger wings without him getting overpowered. We saw at times in the finals, they struggled to defend Tatum and Brown because they just kind of went right through Derrick Jones Jr. Marshall's, you're not going to be able to do that quite as easily with. So I think that'll be an interesting look for Dallas when they do go to him. But I bet that's close to a 50-50 minute split. And then Quentin Grimes minutes probably come when guys are out. We'll see what happens with Kyrie. Sounds like he's still not fully cleared. Sounds like that will happen in advance of training camp at the end of next month. But I think we'll see Grimes work his way in there eventually.
Ray said, Ann Hurley. That I wear the Hurley brand. Yes, I do shop at Costco. This is a good question here. What's going to happen with Markelle Fultz?
Man, I don't know.
In terms of aside from Okoro, who I think is a completely different situation because he's restricted, in terms of how is this guy not on a roster list of remaining free agents? Markelle Fultz has got to be at the top right now.
Oh, easily. Yeah. He's best free agent available by far outside of Okoro. And like you said, we know Okoro is because of the restricted situation. Here's the issue, though. Who needs a point guard right now? Like, if you just start kind of really, and we're not going to go through all 30 teams, but if you just scan through the rosters, nobody is necessarily jumping out at you as this team absolutely needs a point guard. I think maybe the closest right now is Detroit, because they still it's Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and then Marcus Sasser. So then Ivey and Cunningham are guys who can play other positions, obviously. So maybe there could be something there. But my guess is they're looking at it and saying, man, we got to find out what Ivey is. Can Ivey be a more of an on-ball creator or not? What do we have in Sasser versus let's bring in Fultz and have him kind of take minutes away from either one of those guys. So I really am not that no one jumps out. Cavs, somebody just mentioned, yeah, if he wants to take a minimum deal, sure, there could be a path to playing time with Cleveland. My guess is Fultz right now is probably a little bit looking at it and saying, you know what, let's see what develops over the next month or so. Does somebody for them unfortunate pick up an injury and go from there? But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's crazy. And this, I think, speaks to our conversation that we had yesterday that the NBA is ready for expansion. If a guy like Markelle Fultz is still sitting out there and is in a position where, well, maybe if somebody gets injured, he'll find a spot, that tells you there's plenty of talent around the NBA to talk about that expansion piece and for that to be a real thing. Octavius notes, smash the likes. Yep, hit that like button for us.
Like Spike.
Let's go. Momo with the super chat, appreciate it. Said, what grade do y'all give the Lakers for their trades or rather lack of? Thanks, guys, watching for Belgium. Love y'all. I mean, I think at best it would have to be an incomplete, right? Because they didn't do anything. They didn't make any moves like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the end of August, and it is outside of the two-way players, it's Dalton Connect and Bronny James in, Taurean Prince and Spencer Dinwiddie out. So no disrespect to Taurean Prince and Spencer Dinwiddie, not super frontline players, but productive veterans who you knew what you were going to get out of. And now two unproven rookies coming in, one who's very likely to spend most of the year in the G League. Yeah, FD. Yeah, I mean, it's
Lakers dropped the course.
Yeah, what was that? Incomplete fail? Like that's what it was. It wasn't that what it was.
Like back to college, you had that first whatever week of class or whatever where you could decide and you could drop the course if you wanted to. Like they did that.
Withdraw fail. That's I think what it was. Withdraw.
Oh
fail,
yeah,
right
you
there.
that was
the withdraw pass. Withdraw fail. Why would you ever withdraw pass? Like if you're passing, why? Yeah, because it was withdraw pass and withdraw. At least in my school. I don't know. Maybe that was something my school made up.
So you still
I never understood
even
that.
You stopped taking the class. You still got to pass and get the credit.
I don't think you got the credit because you withdrew. So you didn't get the credit because you withdrew. But if you're going to pass, keep it because you already paid for it. I don't know. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, Keith. One of my favorite all-time college courses. It was a psychology class, and it was just something I needed to check off the box. It had nothing to do with my major or anything like that. I just had to check the box, and I think it was they'd put it in some weird category. Anyway, I found out that there were two grades in the whole semester, and that was it. It was the midterm and it was the final, and that was it. And I found out that the teacher gives out a study guide for the midterm and the final right before. So I attended 0 classes, didn't go to any of them, just got the study guide, looked up all the stuff, memorized all of it, went and took it's not like I learned a ton, but I wound up getting a B, getting the passing grade, getting the credit I needed. And in total put in like probably 5 hours of work plus the time it took to take a couple of tests. That was a good time. That was one of those nice, like, what do you call it? Like college hacks or something like that, where I went, man, I just got 3 units of credit here and didn't have to do very much work. So
that was my art history class. Was it was in a big lecture hall, like 200 kids, and they would every day the TA was a teacher's assistant was at the front of the class, and they'd hand you a outline, and it had little blanks all over it, and it'd be like, this person painted this painting which represents blank, and then the person would say it. So what me and my friends did was we realized, like, you know what, we don't all need to go. Somebody just needs to go fill in the blanks, make a copy, and give them to everybody else. So we rotated, and I think we each went to like 2 classes the entire semester, smart. And then sat for the test, because it was like, what's the point of going to this class if they're just going to talk? They didn't take attendance because there's 200 kids in the class. It really only mattered for that. So those, I had a lot of lab classes my last year. So I worked my schedule my entire last year. I had no classes on Fridays. So I had a 3-day weekend every
That's the way to do
weekend,
it.
which was nice. I wish I would be like, yeah. So it was like Thursday night party machine. I was like, stay up late and watch the TNT game until 1 a.m. and not worry about class, because it was pretty much my experience. But yeah. All
Keeps
right.
wild college times.
Yeah, definitely not. We had a couple quick
You
questions.
want to get this
Okay,
one?
grab this one
Uh,
and then I'll go back to a couple.
okay. Jordan said, despite the Cavs being a good chunk below the first apron, is part of the reason why Okoro hasn't been signed yet, because the Cavs want to remain under the luxury tax. So I don't recall the Cavs cap situation. I'm sure you do off the top of my head. So I'm pulling up their salary cap sheet right now for us.
Yeah, they are sitting right now. They're actually about 2 million over the tax line right now. So that's part of, I think, why they haven't signed Okoro, but that's with Okoro's qualifying offer factored in there. So if he signs it, then we're probably going to see them look to make a move at some point to as a tax avoidance move. That could be like a Ty Jerome or Sam Merrill or even Craig Porter Jr. They could move on from one of those guys, but it is a little bit tighter than you want to be, because you got to remember Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, those guys are all 20 million plus. Mitchell and Garland about 35, 36. So you're up there. Then you got Levert, Strus, those are mid-teens. Evan Mobley makes 11, and then it gets even bigger salaries next year, because you have Allen. Mobley's extension is the big one that kicks in. That jumps up to the 38.7. So you're in a spot where a little tighter around the apron. But my guess is with Okoro is, to answer Jordan's real question here, is he doesn't like what the Cavs are offering him, and the Cavs don't want to give him more money. I always believe when we get this deep into the offseason, it starts to become very likely the player will just sign the qualifying offer and return to the team that way.
Yeah. Hey, but you never know. I mean, Brandon Ayuk got his deal done.
Sure.
Maybe Isaac Okoro will.
Well, the Cavs have experience with this with Tristan Thompson, right? Because he took very late into the summer 1 year, and then he ultimately signed his extension. I'm going to pull this one up, Trevor, real quick, because this is probably one more for you to address on Lakers Nation than here. But that's something, where I just didn't want to ignore the question, but that's more of a Lakers Nation topic than it is a front office show one.
Yeah. I mean, getting into each assistant coach individually, I don't know. Part of it is we don't know exactly how JJ Redick is going to delegate the responsibility.
Sure.
Is it going to be like, is Nate McMillan going to be the defensive coach? Is Scott Brooks going to chime in on the offensive end? Are they going to collaborate? What is that going to look like? And of course, they brought in other assistants as well, but we'll see how the roles all kind of play out. I think the most important pieces were, Nate McMillan and Scott Brooks, bringing those guys in to be veteran coaches on the bench, guys who have been through it and can give JJ that kind of support, because again, he's never, coached, in case you haven't heard, he's never coached before. So, those are the pieces that I think are really important for this team, because they're coming in to offer that kind of experience and support. And I think we'll have a little bit more of a sense of who gets what responsibilities once we actually get into the season and we can get JJ in front of us and start asking those questions.
Yeah, we'll knock out this one from the same guy. I'm Agent K. How will the buyout market look this year for the Lakers? We don't buyout market. It's way too early to talk buyout market. We don't know, but I will say this right now: they have a completely full roster, and because they are a tax team, they will have those limitations of they can't sign anybody on the buyout market that made more than the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. So that's a lot of people have been saying that's a first apron restriction. That's actually a tax thing. So that's they'll be in the spot where it's what can they do or not do with that. But that's
right? That's a luxury. You go above the luxury tax and you can't sign.
Let me double check on that.
Okay.
Pull up the handy dandy chart here,
because I thought that was a first apron thing too. I'm like, I would have been in that cat. I would have thought that was a first.
It is the first apron. My bad. I misspoke on that. That is the first apron. So yeah. But they're still not far enough under the first apron either. For it necessarily to matter. But we're way too early on that one.
Jamal Murray, what's going on with his extension? I mean, I wonder. I know they've pushed back against this, but with how poorly he played at the Olympics, is that a factor at all, you think, in the extension?
I kind of wonder if it is a little bit. And I wonder if we might see him do pseudo what Donovan Mitchell did, take a little bit of a shorter extension and then get himself back onto the market, kind of not to prove it by any means, but still get his money, but end up in a spot where it's a little 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 less in terms of years. But yeah, I mean, poorly in last year's playoffs, poorly in the Olympics. That's our last two times we've seen Jamal Murray play, just wasn't very good. So that's a little worrisome for me.
Yeah. We'll see where that goes with Jamal
Let's go
Murray.
here. Your East team that you love, the
My
Knicks starting
Knicks.
five.
Who will be their starting five? That I would have to think just like DiVincenzo and Hart are going to be coming off the bench, and it's going to be Brunson, it's going to be Bridges, OG, Randall, and Mitchell Robinson are going to be their starting five. I don't know if that will be their best five, though. So when we talk about closing games, I think you could make the argument that maybe you go small. I know they experimented a lot. We saw it against the 76ers and Joel Embiid. They used OG Anunoby defending fives, and he actually did pretty damn well. I do wonder if we see some smaller lineups, whether that means Randall or Mitchell Robinson coming out to close out games. I think it may be situational, and Tom Thibodeau can have that kind of flexibility. But that I think that's the bigger question. I think in terms of reputation and everything else, I think you probably wind up with that starting five that I mentioned. Who closes games? I think that'll be interesting to watch. And maybe it's not the same group every single night, but if they do get a set lineup, I'd have to imagine that you want to prioritize versatility, which means probably Hart or DiVincenzo is in the mix there, and one of those two bigs is not.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think I am one of my most, I guess one of the things I'm most curious about is, will Tibbs play small more? He did it in the playoffs, almost kind of out of it. He just really didn't have, they were out of bodies. So it was like, well, we're going to run this way because we have to. I am very curious. Is he going to force fit minutes behind Mitchell Robinson or games when Mitchell Robinson is out to Precious Achua and Jericho Sims? Or will he go, hey, I can go with Randall? And that could be a way. Let me get my best five on the floor. Because there's definitely against backup units, you can play Randall at the five and be fine.
Yeah.
You're going to give up some rim protection, which is where I think that's what he gets so worried about, right? Is like, I need a rim protector back there because he's so traditional in the way he plays that way. But if you're going to get especially Hart and DiVincenzo enough minutes, you have to be willing to play small more than you have historically, because he's pretty much over the last couple of years when both have been healthy, it's a 50-50 minute split between Robinson and Hartenstein. You don't have Hartenstein anymore. So now does that go to Precious Achua? Gets those minutes. I think that's probably the way they'll play most nights. Yeah. I think much like he's done, Sims may start if Robinson's out, but that's start and play the first 5 minutes of each half, and then you don't see him again. But yeah, I am very curious to see if Tibbs if they can almost force him into being a little less traditional with his lineups and tell him, hey, not everybody needs to play 38, 39, 40 minutes a night in the regular season. Let's back these minutes down, use our depth because they have really good depth, and be ready deeper into the season.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. Now, again, that's not necessarily Tibbs' style. We always joke that Tom Thibodeau would play a guy 50 minutes in a 48-minute game and all of that, but they do have the depth this year to not have to do that. So YYC said the Knicks will be so fun to watch. I think so too. I can't wait to see the Knicks out there playing. I think they're going to be a blast.
Can we go? Will Luke Cornett still be the number 2 big, or do you think Xavier Tillman gets increased playing time? Maybe even Keita. Yeah, I think they're all going to play some while Porzingis is out. I think in those first couple of months, I think ideally they would love to see more of Tillman, because I think with him, there's a little bit more of a stretch presence. But I think what you're going to see is a lot of minutes for Cornett and Tillman both, because they're not going to – the Celtics know where they're trying to go at the end of the year. They are not going to put more minutes on Al Horford than necessary. Just because Porzingis is out doesn't mean Horford's going to play 35 minutes a night. He's probably still only going to play 24, 25 minutes, even on the nights when he starts. And that means both Cornett and Tillman will have to play. And I think they're perfectly comfortable with that. And then, I think there's going to be nights if Horford sits, because he's not going to play back-to-backs. He's not going to play if he's feeling any kind of anything. They're going to
Yeah.
sit him. Then you put Kate out there and let him kind of do his thing where he's just all over the boards and playing with a ton of energy and all that. So I think Boston's very comfortable with those three guys. That's why they brought them all back this year, all on minimum contracts or effectively minimum contracts. But yeah, I don't think they're going to push too hard with anybody.
And I like Tillman. He's in particular out of the group. He's the kind of guy where on a random Wednesday in January, he's got that kind of hard hat and lunch pail mentality
Yeah,
that can carry you on a night. Not to say he takes over a game or whatever, but he
sure.
makes the 2-3 winning plays that ultimately see you through on an otherwise kind of lethargic night. And so I do like what he can bring from that aspect, from an energy aspect, from just a grit and determination aspect. I like that about his game a lot. And so I think that he'll be an important part of that rotation.
Completely agree. Yeah, I think they are going to very much run with him. And I'm excited for him this year to see if he can stretch his range out a little bit more. He did it on occasion with the Grizzlies, and Boston really made we didn't see it a lot, but they made an effort to really work him. Al Horford was so good from the corners. I think
Mhm.
they want to, hey, let it fly. If you're open in the corner, shoot it, because that's what we want, right? It's funny that Luke Cornett, who came in as the unicornet and all that other silly stuff when he was with the Knicks, he was strictly a jump shooting big man. And now he's gone the complete opposite way of every other big who takes more threes as they age. Cornett doesn't take any threes anymore. And
Mm.
it's kind of weird that, like, on this team that it's everybody shoots 3-pointers and they shoot a million threes every game, he's the one guy who doesn't. It's always been a little funny to me, but yeah, it's I think you're going to see Tillman take a bunch more threes.
It's so funny the way you see players' games evolve, especially we see this with bigs. I talk about all the time with Andrew Bogut, who came in as this offensive maestro that had all the moves in the post, and by the end of his career, he was pretty much just a set a screen, roll to the rim. That was his job on offense, and then defensively, that was where he really, made his money. And then you look at a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, who was the opposite, who came into the NBA in the draft. It was all about his defense and what he can do protecting the rim and all of that. And well, his offensive game needs to come along, but he can shoot the three a little bit. And now it's like, oh man, can you put up with Karl Anthony Towns defense for long enough for his offensive game to get you through? It's funny the way that can flip. And we see it especially with bigs as their careers go on.
And Jill follows up with, how about reviving his threes for Cornette? I honestly think the Celtics would be fine with it. I think Joe Mazzulla is like, if you're open, shoot. Like,
Yeah.
I just think Cornette has now become focused on, I set screens and I get down to the basket area, and he's actually a really good finisher on lob plays too. He's not catching them up around the square, but he's catching them just high enough to finish them and put them through. So yeah, he's a pretty underrated player as far as backup bigs go. There was one I marked it. Now I can't find it.
I
There's a
think I
Suns
got it here.
question. You got it? Yeah.
Best guess for the
I like
Suns.
these
For the
lineup
Suns
questions.
starting
These are fun.
Yeah, so I mean, from what we understand, they've told Tyus Jones that he's going to start. That's part of the reason why he signed on a minimum with Phoenix. So I would have to imagine it's got to be Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and then Yusuf Nurkic is going to be their five. That's to me. I think that kind of has to. As long as you've told Tyus Jones that, hey, you are the starter, and that's what brought him to Phoenix, I think that's your five.
Yep, and I think Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal play a lot off the bench. They'll both see plenty of minutes when one of those other three guys are out, because they've been out quite a bit over the years, meaning Durant, Beal, and Booker. So they'll still be a big part of things, big part of the rotation. For me, the big question is, do they have enough depth up front? I like Mason Plumlee. I think you can do a lot of things with Mason Plumlee. I like Oso Iguodala quite a bit. He was one of my favorite players in the draft. I think a lot of the things Nurkic brings to the table as far as his screening and his passing and some of that, you'll get out of those two guys too. But the question is, do they really have enough depth up front? But I mean, we're kind of at the point with the Suns that if Durant, Beal, and Booker aren't healthy when it matters, then it's not going to matter. Right. Because you need those three guys if you're going to go anywhere. But I like the Suns better this year than I did last year. But I will caution, I liked a lot of what they did last summer, as far as their minimum signings went around the expensive guys. But this year, I like them that much more. I think they did a nice job filling out their depth.
Yeah. Yeah. I do too. I do too. Unfortunately. Thanks a lot, Phoenix. Um, Jordan said fun. No, actually, I'm excited to watch the Suns play. I am trying, Keith, to not entirely because it's not going to happen, but I'm trying to let go more of the. I don't want to say rivalry with Phoenix. It's not really a rivalry, but um, kind of the Lakers specific viewpoint and try to find more joy in the other teams as well. And I think that the Olympic experience definitely reminded me of like how much
Sure.
fun all of these guys are.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna try to view things through that lens. It's a more peaceful lens, I think. Anyway, I'm gonna try to do that. This is a good comment by Jordan. Said fun stat: a team from either conference hasn't made it to back-to-back NBA Finals for 6 consecutive seasons now. That's the longest such streak since 1972-73 through 77-78. That's incredible. And
Yeah.
somewhere Adam Silver is grinning ear to ear at
Yep.
this stat because this is what the NBA wants.
Yeah, that's it. The league wants parity. They want it to be somewhat like the NFL, where multiple teams every year come in believing we have a chance. Why
Mhm.
not us? Like they're certainly going to be teams that are in the middle of another phase of rebuilding and stuff that know, all right, we're not really going for it this year, but that's what the league wants. And they everything they've done, whether it be within this new CBA and curbing the spending, or years ago with introducing the play-in tournament, or years before that flattening the lottery odds, it's all been to let's try to curb teams from starting training camp with we stink and our goal is to be terrible.
Yeah.
Because certainly there are still teams like that. I think like Washington is a good example.
Sure.
But let's say all of the Wizards veteran guys, and they've got a lot of them, let's say they're all playing really well, and the Wizards wake up on Christmas or New Year's and they're like, man, we're 7th in the East. I don't know that they're going to be like, well, we got to bottom this thing out. That might be early enough, but I think they're really pushing to, we want to be in a spot where everybody kind of has a chance. And if you start tanking right after the trade deadline, kind of is what it is. Like then it is what it is. But the big thing is that flattened lottery odds have eliminated that need to let's be horrible day one because
Yeah.
we're all trying. And like in a year like this with Cooper Flag, or a couple years ago with Victor Wembanyama, we would have been lucky if some team, especially with Wembanyama, we might have had teams not even trying to win 10 games.
Yeah.
Like they might have been so terrible. We know that's just bad too, because then those are for everybody else around the league. It's like, well, everybody just picked up free wins because these guys stink so bad. And
Yeah.
if it happens naturally, it happens naturally, and it will. But you don't want teams starting out the year with let's try to win as few games as possible.
From an NBA, a big picture, league wide perspective, if that is the order of the day, and this was, I think, the danger with the Sam Hinkie, trust the process situation, is that if that model comes through as this is how you do it, you have to bottom out and you have to be awful, and that will lead you to success. That if you're doing that, what's going to happen is that let's say you have 10 teams do that and say, hey, this is what we do, where they're not all going to get top draft picks. And you're going to have those arenas are going to be pretty damn empty for years then, right? So if you have too many teams buying into this whole we have to bottom out model, your gate revenue is going to go way down. Your viewership's going to go down because people are going to say, well, all right, I'll check back in 3 years when this team gets good again, when they get those top draft picks. And people are still going to do that to a degree anyway, but maybe you cut down your losses if your team is at least good enough to be watchable, good enough to be entertaining. It'll keep fans engaged, invested, and from a league perspective, most importantly, spending money, going to the games and on merchandise and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if the team is so terrible, if they're the Washington Generals, people they check out. And that's not what the NBA wants.
Yeah, I hate the idea of fan base X won't stomach a rebuild. They can't do it. I think that is so disrespectful to fans.
Yeah.
I think if you come in with a clear rebuilding plan, but your plan is also let's keep how do I phrase this? Let's keep interest because we're playing a bunch of kids and watch the kids grow and all that stuff. Then fans can buy in. Like I've trust me, here in Orlando, I've lived through that more often of the years that I've lived here than not, of them pitching various rebuilds. And what the fan base is always attached to is, all right, well, if we have kids to build around,
Yeah.
we're happy. And now that it's coming to fruition, those teams, I often think, mean more to fans when it is homegrown. We watched them come together. Like I rooted for these guys when we won 24 games and we stunk, and now we're winning and seeing all these things. I think fans attach to them so much, and that means so much to those fan base. It's also cool here in the 20 years or so that I've lived in Orlando, watching there's now a real full generations of Magic fans. So you have kids who moved here young that became Magic fans, and now they have their own kids, and those kids are being raised as Magic fans. And I see it now. There's more Magic stuff around town as I'm out and about than I've ever seen here, because one, they're good, and they have Paulo, and they have Franz, and they have a whole bunch of likable players. And it's not just people like, oh, hey, the Magic are fun, and Dwight Howard is leading the team to the finals. Let's jump in. These are like real hardcore fans, and that's been really cool to watch that kind of grow over my time here in Orlando. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can. I haven't spent nearly as much time in Orlando, obviously, as you have, but over the last couple of years, whenever I have been in Orlando, I've noticed that too, seeing a lot of Magic jerseys and t-shirts and things of that nature.
And it's even starting to change the crowds in the arena too, because like for Boston, New York, Brooklyn, when they were good, it was like an extra set of home games for them, because now they're still like 50-50, because there's a ton of transplants, people like me who moved down here, and this is their closest if they want to go see an NBA game. But it has, like, it used to be for a lot of years, it was like 75-80% Celtics fans in the arena when they played here in Orlando, and that is started to change a little bit more, and that again just tells you they're building that. I want to close with this one because I know we're getting tight on time. Speaking of teams that maybe should bottom it out fully, can Josh Giddey and Kobe White coexist? I think Josh Giddey and Kobe White can coexist. I don't know if Josh Giddey and Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu and Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball, I don't know that they can all coexist. I think that's the problem for the Bulls. That's a lot of guys who need the ball a lot, all playing at the same time. And I get it. Lonzo's not part of anything the Bulls are trying to build anymore. Fully understand that. With everything he's gone through to try to work back, they're going to play him. They're going to give him minutes. And that they're not just going to write him off and say, sit there and let your contract expire and go.
Right.
That doesn't mean he's going to play 30 minutes every single night. We'll see. Somebody else just checked in. Boulder Blood said Lonzo and LaVine will be gone. They're not yet.
They're not yet.
We have no reason to believe LaVine will be gone. LaVine's been trying to be gone for a year now, and it hasn't happened.
They're hoping he can set foot on the floor, do his thing, and then suddenly teams will become more interested in Zach LaVine.
Yeah,
that's what the hope is.
And that's the hope, right? That's why, at least in the early months, Lonzo and LaVine are both going to play, because what you're hopeful is they show enough that then you can move on from the two of them and then really give all your minutes to that. As far as Bulls, one to build around, I don't know, like Giddey or Kobe White are guys you're building everything around. I think they are pieces to whatever the next good Bulls team is. They can certainly be a part of it. I don't know that they're franchise guys that you're building around.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, we need to wrap things up here. We appreciate all of you for joining us on Front Office Friday. We always enjoy doing this show live for you guys. Went a little bit earlier today, and I saw some people in the chat said by going a little bit earlier, they were able to get the show, which they
I love that.
normally can't. So I was glad to see that. But appreciate all of you. And we'll be back on Monday with the next episode of the NBA Front Office Show. So if you're not a subscriber yet, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Make sure to like this as well. Podcast listeners, follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.